Have you ever realized you are the villain of the story you are playing? I started up Minds Beneath Us, expecting a standard sci fi romp where I save a neon lit city from an evil megacorporation. Instead, I found myself literally hijacking the brain of an innocent, down on his luck guy named Jason Dye, controlling his every move without his consent. It felt dirty, it felt wrong, and I absolutely could not look away. We are living in an era where massive, bloated open worlds are a dime a dozen, and I am exhausted by them. I am tired of fake choices that do not matter and empty worlds that look pretty but feel dead. I needed something sharp. I needed something that would actually make me think about the consequences of pressing a button. Minds Beneath Us delivered exactly that, wrapping me in a hyper capitalist nightmare that feels way too close to our actual future for comfort. I'm going to break down exactly how this indie game sank its teeth into me, why the dialogue system is sharper than any combat mechanic out there, and why Jason Dye is a character I will never forget. Let us dive into the madness. Minds Beneath Us is a dialogue heavy, side scrolling sci fi adventure from Barebone Studio. Set in a near future Taiwanese inspired city, it throws you into a world where AI is completely automated. But the massive server farms needed to run it are powered by actual living human brains. The poorest citizens essentially rent out their skulls just to survive. You do not play as a hero trying to stop this. You play as a bodiless data ghost, an MBU, who forces their way into the mind of a desperate intern named Jason. Today I am going to walk you through my time possessing Jason, exploring the grimy, beautiful streets of this city, and making choices that left a knot in my stomach. The very first thing that grabbed me by the throat was the sheer bleakness of the premise. I woke up in a locked hospital room with fuzzy memories, possessing a weapons smuggler named Evan Jang, before being ripped out and shoved into the skull of Jason Dye. Jason is just a guy trying to get by. He has a girlfriend named Frances, a miserable internship at a megacorp called Vision, crippling debts, and zero ambition. I instantly felt this suffocating weight of responsibility. I was not just playing a game. I was piloting a man who was fully conscious but completely helpless, watching me hijack his voice and his relationships. The game does not let you forget this violation. The developers at Barebone Studio built this incredible, neon drenched Taiwanese inspired city. They mixed hand drawn 2D characters with highly detailed 3D environments, creating a visual style that feels simultaneously flat and endlessly deep. The streets are littered with discarded technology, flickering noodle stands, and desperate people. I found myself just stopping to stare at the background details, listening to the ambient hum of a society that has commodified human consciousness. It is a terrifying concept delivered with absolute confidence. I want to be blunt about the gameplay. If you are looking for high octane shooting or complex puzzle solving, you need to look elsewhere. The mechanics here are unapologetically light, and I loved every second of it. This is a game of words. I spent the vast majority of my 17 hours with this game reading, analysing conversations, and navigating some of the most stressful dialogue trees I have ever encountered. You act almost like a manipulative therapist. I had to pay strict attention to what Jason's colleagues cared about, their personal motivations, their hidden fears, and the tiny details of their daily schedules. I had to know exactly how to talk to characters like Ninsitu. If I forgot a minor detail from an hour ago, the game punished me for it. Characters remember your slip ups, they hold grudges. At one point, I casually mentioned something Francis wanted kept private to her co-worker, and the immediate backlash made me want to reload my save. But I forced myself to live with my mistakes. The tension in this game does not come from a health bar, it comes from the fear of saying the wrong thing and watching Jason's fragile life crumble because of my carelessness. There is a tiny amount of combat in Minds Beneath Us, handled through quick time events. I will admit, these sequences are basic. You push a direction, hit a button, and watch a slick little animation play out. But they serve a very specific, vital purpose in the rhythm of the game. After reading thousands of words of dense corporate espionage and heavy philosophical debates about the nature of free will, these brief flashes of physical violence felt like taking a sudden, sharp breath. They break up the heavy atmosphere perfectly. I never found them annoying because they are used so sparingly. They feel like punctuation marks at the end of a long, exhausting day of corporate survival. The real battlefield is the office politics anyway. I found the verbal arguments with CEO Shane Yan far more intimidating than any physical punch thrown in a back alley. When you're dealing with a company that literally harvests human brains to run the internet, a physical fistfight feels quaint. What truly kept me glued to the screen was the game's razor sharp critique of capitalism. This is not the standard cyberpunk fluff where you slap on a neon jacket and shoot cyborgs. This game gets into the dirty, bureaucratic reality of exploitation. I had to walk Jason through the sterile halls of the Silencio company, watching the poorest members of society voluntarily surrender their bodily autonomy just to pay off debts. I felt genuinely disgusted. The writing is incredibly grounded. Nobody is cackling like a cartoon villain. The horrors are treated as normal, everyday business transactions. The executives talk about human brains like they are swapping out broken graphics cards. I've played dozens of games that try to tackle the ethics of artificial intelligence, but none of them hit me as hard as this. The irony that a hyper advanced AI society still relies on the wetware of desperate, impoverished humans is a brilliant, sickening twist on the genre. It made me look at my own reliance on technology in a very uncomfortable way. I need to talk about Frances. She is Jason's girlfriend, and my relationship with her was the absolute emotional anchor of my playthrough. Because remember, she thinks she is talking to Jason. I was constantly playing this twisted game of imitation, trying to act the way I thought a good boyfriend should act, while, knowing I was a digital parasite wearing his face, the guilt was immense. I found myself actually caring about her well-being, wanting to protect her from the fallout of the massive conspiracy I was uncovering. The conversations with her in their cramped apartment were my favourite moments. They felt intimate and incredibly human. I was carrying around a wedding ring in Jason's pocket the entire game, agonizing over if or how I should let him propose. The writing manages to balance this massive, world-ending corporate conspiracy with the very small, quiet tragedy of a relationship built on a fundamental lie. It is brilliant storytelling that uses the medium of video games in a way a movie simply could not replicate. I always get cynical when a game promises that my choices matter. Usually it is a lie. You pick a red or blue ending and call it a day. Minds Beneath Us actually backed up its promises, though in a much more subtle, insidious way. Yes, there are 4 distinct endings, but the real impact of my choices was felt in the micro interactions. The way a co-worker looked at me, the amount of trust a faction placed in me during a critical mission. The game funnels you through a linear, overarching plot, but the texture of that plot changes drastically based on how you treat people. I actively shaped the social dynamics of the office. I chose who got thrown under the bus and who I protected. The illusion of choice is a central theme of the narrative itself, blurring the lines between my actions as the player and the predestined fate of these characters. I felt the consequences of my decisions compounding hour after hour, leading to a rooftop confrontation that left me staring at my screen in complete silence. When I finally reached the credits, after about 17 hours, I was completely exhausted in the best way possible. The ending I got did not wrap everything up in a neat little bow. It left massive, gaping questions about the true nature of the MBUs and the mysterious entity known as the Spectre. I know some people hate ambiguous endings, but I ate it up. It felt completely appropriate for a story about the limits of human understanding. I did not get to save the world. I barely managed to save Jason. The game ends with a lingering sense of dread, a clear indication that the corporate machine will keep grinding up human lives regardless of my small victories. It is a bleak, uncompromising vision that refused to hold my hand or offer cheap comfort. I stepped away from my keyboard, feeling like I had actually lived another life, a dirty, compromised life that I am going to be dissecting in my head for months. Barebone Studio has created an absolute masterpiece of misery, and I cannot wait to see what they do next. If you are enjoying this deep dive into the corporate misery of Minds Beneath Us, do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. Minds Beneath Us is a rare breed. It is a game that respects your intelligence, punishes your inattention, and forces you to confront the ugly reality of control. It is a gorgeous, painful experience. But I have to ask you, if you were trapped in someone else's mind, holding the keys to their life, would you be a saviour or a parasite? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. And to see one of the greatest wrestling games of all time, well, it could do with a stunner or two. Then you need to watch the video on screen, now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, and I'll see you next time.